I just wrote this list of Tai Chi. Yeah, and it's not that good. So it's just like, just see if you feel like doing it. And then all the stuff is my own interpretation that I got from a $7 book. So it's almost like I just sort of have a pamphlet. And I've never received any instructions from anyone other than myself about Tai Chi. I was gonna do the Wu Chi routine.
Yeah, Wu Chi.
And while I said it's not that good and only do it if you feel like doing it, it's like I just did Tai Chi, and now it's coming up again because I feel like doing something.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Wu Chi is what this book says it is.
Wax on, wax off.
You can see that the Wu Chi set of moves are about doing these, like, faster, small movements or something like that. It's got a little bit more motion, but Wu Chi actually just means inaction, so I don't know if that's a real thing. Alright, I'm gonna keep reading the Tao Te Ching. Appearing means life, disappearing means death. 13 are the followers of life, 13 are the followers of death, but people living to live join the land of death's 13. And why? Because they live to live. It's said that those who guard life well aren't injured by soldiers in battle, or harmed by rhinos or tigers in the world, for rhinos have nowhere to sink their horns. Tigers have nowhere to sink their claws, and soldiers have nowhere to sink their blades. And why? Because for them there is no land of death. The way begets them. Virtue keeps them. Matter shapes them. Usage completes them. Thus do all things honor the way and glorify virtue. The honor of the way, the glory of virtue are not confirmed, but always so. The way begets and keeps them, cultivates and trains them, stays at ease and adjusts them, nurtures and protects them, but begets without possessing, acts without presuming, and cultivates without controlling. This is called dark virtue. The world has a maiden. She becomes the world's mother and knows the mother, understands the child. Who understands the child keeps the mother safe and lives without trouble. Who blocks the opening, who closes the gate, lives without toil. Who unblocks the opening, who meddles in affairs, lives without hope. Who sees the small has vision, who protects the weak has strength, who uses his light, who trusts his vision, lives beyond death. This is the hidden immortal. Were I sufficiently wise, I would follow the great way and only fear going astray. The great way is smooth, but people love byways. Their palaces are spotless. Their fields are overgrown, their granaries are empty. They wear fine clothes and carry sharp swords. They tire of food and drink and possess more than they need. This is called robbery, and robbery is not the way. What is planted right is not uprooted. What is held right is not ripped away. Future generations worship it forever. Cultivated in the self-virtue becomes real. Cultivated in the family, virtue multiplies. Cultivated in the village, virtue increases. Cultivated in the state, virtue prospers. Cultivated in the world, virtue abounds. Thus, view the self through the self. View the family through the family. View the village through the village. View the state through the state. View the world through the world. How do we know what the world is like through this? He who contains virtue in abundance resembles a newborn child. Wasps don't sting him, beasts don't claw him, birds of prey don't carry him off. His bones are weak, his tendons are soft, and his grip is firm. He hasn't known the union of sexes, and yet his penis is stiff. So full of essence is he cries all day, yet never gets hoarse. So full of breath is he who knows how to breathe endures. Who knows how to endure is wise. Who lengthens his life tempts luck. Who breathes if his will is strong, but virility means old age. This isn't the way. What isn't the way ends early. Those who know don't talk. Those who talk don't know. Seal the opening, close the gates, dull the edge, untie the tangle, soften the light, join the dust. This is called the dark union. It can't be embraced, it can't be abandoned, it can't be helped, it can't be harmed, it can't be exalted, it can't be debased. Thus does the world exalt it. Use direction to govern a country, use indirection to fight a war, use inaction to rule the world. How do we know this works? The greater the prohibitions, the poorer the people, the sharper the weapons, the darker the realm, the smarter the scheme, the stranger the outcome, the finer the treasure, the thicker the thieves. Thus the sage declares, I change nothing, and people transform themselves. I stay still, and people adjust themselves. I do nothing, and people enrich themselves. I want nothing, and the people simplify themselves. Where the government stands aloof, the people open up. Where government steps in, the people slip away. Happiness rests in misery. Misery hides in happiness. Who knows where they end? There is no direction. Direction turns into indirection. Good turns into evil. The people have been lost for a long, long time. Thus, the sage is an edge that doesn't cut, a point that doesn't pierce, a line that doesn't extend, a light that doesn't blind. In governing people and caring for heaven, nothing surpasses economy. Economy means planning ahead. Planning ahead means accumulating virtue. Accumulating virtue means overcoming all. Overcoming all means knowing no limit. Knowing no limit means guarding the realm. Guarding the realm's mother means living long. This means deep roots and a solid trunk. The way of long and lasting life. Ruling a great state is like cooking a small fish. When you govern the world with the Tao, spirits display no powers. Now that they display no powers, their powers do people no harm. Not that the powers do no harm, the sage does people no harm, and neither harms the other, for both rely on virtue. The great state is a watershed, the confluence of the world. The female of the world through stillness. The female conquers the male in order to be still. She needs to be lower. The great state that is lower governs the small state. The small state that is lower is governed by the great state. Some lower themselves to govern. Some lower themselves to be governed. The great state's only desire is to unite to lead others. The small state's only desire is to join and serve others. For both to achieve their desire, the greater needs to be lower. The Tao is creation's sanctuary, treasured by the good. It keeps the bad alive. Beautiful words might be the price. Noble deeds might be the gift. How can we abandon people who are bad? Thus when emperors are enthroned or ministers installed, through there be great disc of jade, followed by the teams of horses. They don't rival one who sits and offers up it this way. Why the ancients exalted it, did they not proclaim? Who searches thereby finds, who errs thereby escapes. Thus the world exalts it. Acts without acting, work without working, taste without tasting, great or small, many or few, repay each wrong. Virtue plan for the hard, while it's easy. Work on the great, while it's small. The hardest task in the world begins easy. The greatest goal in the world begins small. Therefore, the sage never acts great, but he thus achieves great things. Who quickly agrees and seldom trusts it, who makes it all easy finds it all hard. Therefore the sage makes everything hard. He thus finds nothing hard. It's easy to rule while it's peaceful. It's easy to plan before it arrives. It's easy to break while it's fragile. It's easy to disperse while it's small. Acts before it exists, govern before it rebels. A giant tree grows from the tiniest shoot. A great tower rises from a basket of dirt. 1,000-mile journey begins at your feet. But to act is to fail. To control is to lose. Therefore the sage doesn't act. He thus doesn't fail. He doesn't control. He thus doesn't lose. When people pursue a task, they always fail near the end. Care at the end as well at the start means an end to failure. The sage thus seeks what no one seeks. He doesn't cry hard to get goods. He studies what no one studies. He turns so that others pass by to help all things be natural. He thus dares not to act. The ancient masters of the way tried to enlighten The ancient masters of the way try not to enlighten, but to keep men in the dark. What makes the people hard to rule is knowledge. Who rules the realm of knowledge spreads evil in the realm. Who rules without knowledge spreads the virtue in the realm. Who understands these two understands the universal key. Understanding the universal key, this is called dark virtue. Dark virtue goes deep, goes far, goes the other way until it reaches perfect harmony. The reason the sea can govern 100 rivers is because it has mastered being lower, thus it can govern 100 rivers. If a sage would be above the people, he should speak as if he were below them. If he would be before them, he should act as if he were behind them. Thus, when the sage is above, the people are not burdened. When he is in front, the people are not hindered. The world never worries of pushing him forward, because he doesn't struggle. No one can struggle against him. The world calls me great but useless. Because I am great, I am useless. If I were of use, I would have stayed small, but I possess the 3 treasures. I treasure and uphold. First is compassion, second is austerity, third is a reluctance to excel. Because I am compassionate, I can be valiant. Because I am austere, I can be extravagant. Because I am reluctant to excel, I can be chief of all tools. If I renounce compassion for valor, austerity for extravagance, reluctance for supremacy, I would die. Compassion wins every battle, outlast every attack. What heaven creates, let compassion protect. In ancient times, the perfect officer wasn't armed, the perfect warrior wasn't angry, the perfect victor wasn't hostile. The perfect commander acted humble. This is the virtue of non-aggression. This is using the strength of others. This is uniting with heaven, which was the ancient end. In warfare there is a saying, rather than a host, better to be a guest rather than advance an inch. Better to retreat a foot. This means to form no column, to wear no armor, to brandish no weapon, to repulse no enemy. No face is worse than to have no enemy. Without an enemy, we would lose our treasure. Thus, when opponents are evenly matched, remorseful one prevails. My words are easy to understand, easy to employ, but no one can understand them. No one can employ them. Words have an ancestor, deeds have a master, because they have no understanding. People fail to understand me. Rare are they who understand me, thus I am exalted. The sage therefore wears coarse cloth and keeps his jade inside, to understand yet not understand is transcendence. Not to understand yet understand is affliction. The reason the sage is not afflicted is because he treats affliction as affliction, hence he is not afflicted. When people no longer fear authority, a greater authority will appear. It doesn't restrict where people dwell, don't repress how people live if they aren't repressed. They won't protect. Thus the sage knows himself, but he doesn't reveal himself. He loves himself, but he doesn't exalt himself. Thus he picks this over that. Daring to act means death. Daring not to act means life. Of these two, one benefits, one harms. That what heaven hates, who knows the reason, the way of heaven wins easily without a fight, answers wisely without a word, comes quickly without a summons, plans ingeniously without a thought. The net of heaven is all-embracing, its mesh is wide, but nothing escapes. If people no longer fear death, why do we threaten to kill them? And if others fear death and still act perverse, we catch and kill them. Who else will dare? As long as people fear death, the executioner will exist. To kill in the executioner's place is to take the carpenter's place. Who takes the carpenter's place is bound to hurt his hands. The reason the people are hungry is because those above levy so many taxes. Thus the people are hungry. The reason the people are hard to rule is because those above are so forceful. Thus the people are hard to rule. The reason the people think little of death is because those above think so much of life. Thus the people think little of death. Meanwhile, those who do nothing to live are more esteemed than those who love life. When people are born, they are soft and supple. When they perish, they are hard and stiff. When plants shoot forth, they are soft and tender when they die.
Single whip. This is kind of like Mayor Park's main.
They are withered and dry. Thus it is said, the hard and strong are followers of death. The soft and weak are followers of life.
I'm
When
not
an
even
army
sure.
becomes strong, it suffers defeat. When a plant becomes hard, it snaps.
Like, are you sure
The
you
hard
know
and
what you're
strong dwell below. The soft and weak dwell above. The way of heaven is like a stringing a bow, pulling down the high and lifting up the low, shortening the long,
I
lengthening
think
the
so.
short. The way of heaven takes from the long and supplements the
Yeah, I
short,
can see
unlike
that
the way of
going.
man taking from the short and giving to the long. You can find the long and give it to the world. Only those who find the way, and the sage does not presume on what he does or claims what he achieves. Thus he chooses to hide his skill. Nothing.
Alright, and monkey holds world, and that's it.
Still got like wait. You can. Dang, that was close. The more he gives to others, the greater his abundance. The way of heaven is to help without harming. The way of the sage is to act without struggling.